Hey guys, John here from Sonic Drive Studio. I really appreciate you guys tuning into this channel. Now before we start this video, please hit subscribe and follow us on facebook.com/sonicdrivestudio to stay up to date. In this video what we're going to do is try to make a huge metal guitar tone with Helix Native by Line 6. And we're going to use some OwnHammer impulse responses for the cab simulations. Of course, because the cab portion of your guitar tone plays a huge part in the sound of your guitar. Now I have a song here, a new song, and I have a couple of DI tracks here that need amping. So let's take a listen to how it sounds right now. So of course that's not very flattering. The bass and the drums sound great, but the guitars need to be fully processed. So we have two DI tracks over here, and I send them both to a guitar bus called Helix Rhythm Guitars. And we're going to start off by soloing one guitar. So the first thing that I'm going to do is load up Nadir, which is an impulse response loader. And as I have explained before, I simply prefer this over the internal cab IR loader in Helix Native, simply because the fact that the browsing is a bit easier. Sound-wise, there are no differences. But of course, if you prefer, you can also just load the impulse responses in Helix Native itself. So we're going to set quality to extreme, and then we're going to load an impulse response. Right now, what I have here is the orange 4x12 from the Heavy Hitters Collection Volume 1. And I'm using the M25 speaker option, which is based on a green back. And I'm just going to load up the OwnHammer 1 mix in the Quick Start folder, simply because I like to use those very often, because they tend to sound huge and they often have a very balanced frequency response across the board. And then when we get our basic guitar tone down, we'll go back and see if we can find files that suit the song even better. But I'm pretty sure that this file will give us great results to begin with. And then I'm going to load up Helix Native before the cab loader. And I'm going to click on User 1 and click on the first new preset, which will give me an empty preset to begin with. First, we're going to click on Host and turn on the input gate. And I'm going to set my threshold to about -65 and turn the gate all the way down. Then we're going to open up the amp section. And for this song, what I think I'm going to do is go for the Line 6 Badonk amp. It's a great, huge, crunchy sounding amp. Let's take a listen. Okay, so the first thing I notice is that there is way too much bass. So I'm going to turn down the depth control here to about 0.8. And we're also going to lower the bass to about 5. Let's take a listen again. It's still very bassy sounding, so I'm going to turn up the presence to make it a bit brighter. Let's turn it up to about 7. All the way up to 8 sounds great already. I can turn the depth down even more, and I'm going to do the same with the bass control. Okay, so there's a lot of bass going on. Now what I'm going to do now is go to my bus over here. This is where I add all the mix processing, basically. And what I'm going to do here is load up the virtual mix rack by Slate Digital. The only thing I'm going to do now is add the FGS equalizer, which is based on an SSL equalizer. And I'm going to turn up the filter and filter out some low end under about 90 Hertz. This cleans up the low end considerably. Maybe take that down a little bit more. At this stage, I don't want to take out too much low end, so I'm going to keep it at about 82 Hertz. All right, then we're going to go back. Okay, so we're going to go back and tweak the amp further. I'm already pretty happy with this tone, but we can sculpt it even further. I feel that the amp is a little bit too honky sounding, and what a lot of people like to do is add a tube screamer in front of the amp, just to kind of make the bass sound tighter and make it smoother overall. So we're going to try that. I'm going to turn down the gain. We'll leave tone at the default setting of 6.5 and mess around with the level a little bit. So as you can hear, that tightens up the low end a lot more, but it does tend to add a sort of mid-rangey, sort of fizzy distortion layer on top of the sound. So there's another thing that I like to do to kind of achieve the same thing but without the distortion artifacts, and that is add an equalizer before the amp block. And we're going to use the 10-band graphic EQ block. And I'm just going to look for a couple of those honky frequencies and see if I can take them out before it hits the preamp. So we're basically changing the tonal characteristics of the guitar itself going into the amp, if that makes sense. So let's listen. Yeah, so those frequencies are kind of bugging me a little bit. So I'm going to take out a little bit of 500 Hertz and also a little bit of 250 Hertz. And let's compare. So it kind of takes away some of that honkiness. Also going to drop down the low frequencies here at 125 Hertz. This can tighten up your low end quite a bit. Check this out. Obviously, that's a very extreme setting, but this enables you to hear what it does to your sound when you remove these frequencies. So to tighten up your low end, turn this down a little bit. And we're just going to add a little bit more bite and presence to the guitar by raising the 1K slider. Let's A/B with and without. So when we turn on the EQ, the guitar comes forward a bit more and it sounds a bit more aggressive. And when we turn the EQ off, the sound is a bit muddy and a bit more honky, so to speak. All right, so this is a great basic tone we're getting here. I'm going to go back to the amp to see if there is anything else we can change. Yeah, so right now I'm very happy. Then what I'm going to do is add a reverb block after the amp, just to add some subtle room reverb. I like to do this always with my rhythm guitar tones. Now that's way too obvious, so we're going to turn down the decay to about 3.5. And from there we're going to turn down the mix. Yeah, I'm a big fan of what that does to the sound. It's subtle, but it makes the guitar sound more real and alive. I've turned down the depth a little bit more here to 0.2. Before we move on and add this to the other track, I'm going to try another IR. So right now we're on the Heavy Hitters Collection Volume 1, but I'd like to go to the Heavy Hitters Collection Volume 2. So I'm going to start with the 2x12 Zilla, the ZLSF, and I'm going to go to the M25 speaker option, which is the same kind of speaker, a greenback Celestion. It's the same kind of speaker that I was using in the 4x12 Orange. but now it's in a different cab. And we're going to open the OwnHammer 1 file again and compare. That also sounds pretty good to me. Let's also try the Emperor. We're going to go with the C65 speaker option, which is the default speaker in this cab when you buy one, I think. And we're going to click on the OwnHammer 1 file from the Quick Start folder again and take a listen. I really like what I'm hearing here. Compared to the orange 4x12, the low end is a little bit less boomy, which is very nice. Especially considering that the Line 6 Badonk M model has a lot of low end to begin with. Let's go back and compare this to the orange 4x12 one more time, because I really did like that sound. In fact, it's one of my favorite impulse responses for really huge metal tones. I love how that sounds, but in this case we're going to go for the Heavy Hitters Collection Volume 2 Emperor cab with the C65 speaker option. Okay, so I'm very happy with this tone. I'm going to copy these settings and put them on the other guitar here and pan the guitars all the way to the left and all the way to the right. Okay, so now we have two guitars with the same tone. Let's take a listen. Man, I really love that sound. It's articulate and huge, but at the same time it has this very round and 3D mid-range going on. Just amazing. Now we're going to set the level in the mix of these guitars. I mean, these guitars are basically done. It sounds amazing. What I'm also going to do here is add the Virtual Tape Machines by Slate Digital as well, as I always add that to my tracks. It just adds some subtle coloration. And then we're also going to add the Virtual Console Collection, also by Slate. Set that to the Brit 4K E setting. And make sure it doesn't clip too much on the low palm muted notes. That sounds awesome. We could even try another coloring unit. We can try the New York from the Virtual Tube Collection just to see what that does to the tone. I'm going to set it to console, so not to preamp. I'm very happy with this tone. There's nothing that I'd like to add, actually. I mean, the EQ curve seems great. I'd have a guitar tone like that in my mixes any day. So thanks a lot for watching this video. And like I said before, I'd appreciate it if you hit subscribe and follow us on facebook.com/sonicdrivestudio. And please stay tuned for another video about this song. This time it's going to be about mixing and processing the bass guitar part for this song. Thanks a lot for watching, and cheers.